they know how to make money. They know, how to acquire these assets, but they just don't know what to do with them and how to structure themselves and how to protect themselves. So I want to make sure my clients are in a position where they literally have that brick wall between their neighbor's house and their house, and that brick wall is their personal life and their business life. And that cannot be jumped over, it can't be broken down. It literally gives them that protection. So I love our country. I absolutely appreciate the opportunity I have as an entrepreneur and a business owner, but I am not going to pay $1 more than I have to. I want to be known as a good family man, good husband, a visionary, I guess, for businesses, to be able to help them just get to that next level and be the reason that they were able to have the financial freedom that a lot of us experience.
Welcome back to the Hustle and Grind podcast, the show where we dig into why real entrepreneurs trade comfort for conviction. This isn't about vanity metrics or overnight success. It's about the stories behind building a reputation that actually matters. I'm your host, Andrew, keynote architect, platform builder, and fellow founder in the trenches. Today, I'm sitting down with Brent Carlson, the expert who's been helping entrepreneurs create their corporations and LLCs for over 20 years, with a firm specializing in bookkeeping, accounting, tax, and estate planning. So, Brent, thank you so much for being on the Hustle and Grind show today. I really appreciate you being here, man.
You're very welcome. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for asking me to attend. I appreciate that.
Anytime, man. So, one of the things we went through a little bit of your bio during the intro, but I'd love to hear it in your words. What's your ninja skill? What are you really good at? What do you give to entrepreneurs out there?
Honestly, I feel like we give them insight. I feel like we give them education that a lot of successful business owners that I talk to every day with massive portfolios that just have a lack of education. Just really, they know how to make money. They know, how to acquire these assets, but they just don't know what to do with them and how to structure themselves and how to protect themselves.
And I know that's one of the things that I've learned from you over the years is the how to protect yourself as a company. And a lot of times we don't think about that. We go out, we get our first LLC. We're all happy about it. We do whatever has to happen in our state to make that work. But there's a lot more to it. And that's one of the things I wanted to go into with you is what are some of the things that you can do to help protect your assets in your company?
There's a lot of things when it comes to asset protection, and a lot of it starts with the corporate structuring. How are you holding those assets? And a lot of our clients, a lot of people that we meet at events or do consultations with, a lot of them have set up entities in their home state. And unfortunately, Andrew, there are different laws in different states. So I'm actually headquartered in Nevada, and we set up a lot of our clients with Nevada and Wyoming entities. And the reason we do that is for that exact question that you asked, as far as how do you protect your assets? And those states have some very unique statutes in place that give us business owners, entrepreneurs, protection where we can't be sued personally. So a lot of it just starts with how are you structured, and then also where are you structured, and what are those state laws that could potentially cause you to have some personal liability. And a real quick example of that, Andrew, in Utah, one of the easiest ways to pierce the corporate veil is commingling funds. And I just got off the phone with someone with a couple hundred properties, 98 apartments, and that's the concern, So it just starts with structuring, and it starts with that education of knowing what your options are. And a lot of people feel that they have to incorporate where they live because that's where they're operating, and that's actually not true.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I learned a long time ago, and it was interesting. I never knew this, that there are certain states which are more beneficial, and I'm in New York State. I don't have to incorporate, have my main corporations in New York State. It's a different world. And I never knew that was a thing. I always knew big corporations were in Connecticut. I mean, that was a whole thing, or Delaware, sorry.
Delaware.
Never knew about that structure for Nevada. So, and I think it's really important that people understand how to do this structure, because it's not difficult, but it can really save you a lot of trouble in the future. And it can really be incredibly helpful, especially with protecting yourselves and your assets. So really briefly, I'd like you to go through what that looks like. Like how I'm in New York State. How do I incorporate in Nevada? Like, what is the
Yeah,
benefits from it? What's going on? Why Nevada
yeah,
and Wyoming?
yeah. And real quick too, because when I was in school, one of the questions I'll never forget in fifth grade, Miss Davis's class, the 15th question was, what was the best state to incorporate in? And it was Delaware. And that was the answer. And that was the education. So Delaware is still a very powerful state, but that's more for publicly traded companies. So if we have clients that are, publicly traded, we're going to look at Delaware. But for us business owners that have real estate investments, or we're doing consulting or syndications or notes or whatever you're doing, you can incorporate in Nevada or Wyoming. And why would we want to do that? Well, there's no state tax in either Nevada or Wyoming. So by incorporating here, you are not putting yourself in a position where you're paying double taxation. So if you live in New York State and all that money's flowing through to you, you're still going to pay the taxes where you live. So it's not like you're doing tax evasion or anything like that. But what you're doing is you're setting yourself up in a state. And in Nevada, the laws and the corporate veil has not been pierced, I believe, since 1987 or 8, and that was because of fraud. So the only way you can pierce the corporate veil in Nevada or Wyoming is if you commit fraud. And at that point, I feel, if you commit fraud, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. But if something happens and, a business mistake takes place, the last thing that should happen is you should lose all your personal assets or potentially have those assets taken from you. So by having us set up and having our clients headquartered here, and I have 13,000 clients, and literally, I think I told you yesterday, 12,990 are in Nevada or Wyoming. And that is because they cannot be sued personally in the event of a lawsuit. Now, you're in New York. You asked the question, how does that work? A lot of our clients, let's say that you guys are in construction and you have employees, or you have a rental property, in Florida that you need to register. So you have the ability it's called foreign filing. So you have the ability to foreign file this Nevada or Wyoming LLC into the state that you live and operate in. So to make it very black and white, it's just as if you had a New York LLC, because you're going to pay taxes there. You're going to pay some fees there because you're registered legally to do business there. But the difference is now, Andrew, is it's going to show in parentheses the jurisdiction is Nevada or Wyoming. So now that means, yes, jurisdictionally, you may be sued in New York State or Florida. But now when it comes to the corporate veil, you have a corporation in a state that doesn't allow you as an individual to be sued personally. And that's why we do it. And that's how it works, because a lot of times we'll just register clients where they operate anyway. So that state's still getting some of their fees. They're still getting the tax. But I have the peace of mind of knowing my clients are protected.
Exactly. And it was funny when I first heard about this again years ago, I heard about the structure and it just totally made sense because especially, let's go back to the construction, because I really like that analogy. Here in New York State, we have ladder laws. And even if you have insurance, if a worker falls off a ladder in New York State on a construction site, your insurance may not cover it. And you could end up getting sued for a very large amount of money for this. And it's something that's a huge problem here. Whereas if you're a Nevada corporation, you can also protect yourself. I'm not talking about getting out of, if there's something is wrong on your construction site and somebody gets hurt because of negligence, that's one thing. But Correct. There's some other ways you can end up having to pay a huge amount of money, and not necessarily because you did anything wrong. You just happen to own the property.
Yeah. And this is what I like to tell people, we have insurance, sometimes things are going to happen. I want to make sure that we settle for the value of the insurance. I want to make sure my clients are in a position where they literally have that brick wall between their neighbor's house and their house. And that brick wall is their personal life and their business life. And that cannot be jumped over. It can't be broken down. It literally gives them that protection. So if that happens, they have the peace of mind of knowing that this entity will protect them, even with laws like that, because Nevada and Wyoming, those states do not allow the corporate veil to be pierced. And so we make sure our clients are in compliance, and we will make sure that they're registered, that they're filed properly, And it's very simple. A lot of times it's just registering a form and just, applying to be allowed to do business in the state wherever these clients listening are actually located in.
Mm-hmm. So I want to go back into how did you get into this? Like, tell me the backstory. Tell me the series of events that happened to get you to the point where you now own a company who is helping other companies do with things, because it's not just corporate entities. You also help with bookkeeping and accounting. How did you get into that world?
Yeah, so when I graduated from BYU, that's actually my jersey there. Played for that man. He passed away a few years ago, Lavelle Edwards. Great, great, great man.
Mm-hmm.
So I always thought I was going to go in the pharmaceutical world. I thought I was going to follow my dad's footsteps. He had worked in that industry for many years.
Mm-hmm.
Played ball at BYU. Like most boys wanted to be like his dad.
Yep.
But when I graduated, I noticed that at that time, my sister was actually in the industry, and she was helping several business owners with their structure. And I just kind of saw the joy in her face of what she was doing. And at that point, she was fairly young in her career. And so I started talking to her, and I shifted directions actually pretty quick in December of 2025 or 2005. I decided that, this industry was for me. I enjoy meeting with people. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy helping people. And so I got in the industry. I started off as just a consultant, where basically I'd help people set up their LLCs. Worked for a company that was around for many years and became their general manager in 2007. And then had about 6 years experience. And then it was an older couple, so they decided to shut their doors. So we decided to start Corporate Capital. And the reason we did that is because there was a lot of clients that had a long standing relationship with this company. A lot of them that had already actually paid for services that they needed help with. And that company was shutting their doors December 1st, 2013 when we opened. So a big reason why we started, my wife and I, was to help those clients that we had those relationship with, because I had been with this firm for many, many years. And then, so we thought we would, get into it for a few years and help kind of clean up and, help these businesses that we had worked with for many years. And then fast forward 12 years later, and we've currently expanded into Southern Utah. We have a physical location there. We work with clients in all 50 states, but I really got into the business because I enjoy this. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy educating people. And ultimately, I enjoy making money and seeing people make money.
Yeah.
And with our advice, like you mentioned, bookkeeping and tax, we're so involved with our clients, like everyone should be with their accountant, that we're constantly trying to save our clients money and constantly trying to see what strategies can be used. And that's why I do it,
Yeah. That was one thing I learned a long time ago is that your accountant is probably I would say, the most important person on your team. And I also learned a long time ago, there are a lot of accountants that don't like talking to clients. So, well, just do your taxes and you don't see them again. That's not the relationship you want with your accountants. And with you folks, I know you're very different than that. It's more proactive. It's more, let's go over budgets, and talk a little bit more about kind of what you guys do with that.
Yeah, I appreciate that because, as business owners, we're all responsible for our financials. And, whether that's on a napkin or, you pay for QuickBooks or you use Excel spreadsheet, it's completely up to you. But, what we have found, and we have a service that Andrew was referring to, it's bookkeeping and accounting. So every month, we will go into our client's account basically weekly, daily, and we will do their bookkeeping and accounting. So every single day, every month, we'll go over this report with our clients and we'll go through, okay, what is going on in the business? What is your P&Ls? Does everything reconcile? And by doing that, what we're able to do is look at some different tax strategies that we can implement, during the year. So not only do we provide, accurate P&Ls and make sure that the business owner doesn't have to spend time, logging on, keeping track of their income and expenses, but more importantly, we're sitting there looking at it. Okay, the first quarter is over or the first 2 quarters are over, the client's, on track for X amount of dollars. We want to make sure that there's some estimated taxes that are paid, right? So by doing the bookkeeping and accounting, we can provide that. And then more importantly, there's some strategies that I guarantee some of you watching this have already taken advantage of. Some probably will be very upset, after you hear it, but you could pay your kids, through your entity. And a lot of people think, well, I'm a truck driver. How do I pay my kids? It doesn't necessarily mean they have to do the work that you're doing. So there's some strategies and some tax strategies like that. Like the Augusta Rule is one that I like to mention to people. It's kind of a low-hanging fruit, out there, Andrew, where people can take advantage of this by doing it and having an entity. And again, with us doing the bookkeeping and accounting, obviously we know what the P&Ls are every single month, so we can provide this education. Now, I do want to mention, if we don't do the bookkeeping and the accounting, let's say we just do the taxes, we'll still provide this guidance and give you access and answer the questions quarterly, because we don't bill by the hour. We just want to have that relationship. But obviously, if you guys don't send the financials to us, or if you're not up to date, it's hard for us to give you that advice. So, that's why we decided to kind of keep everything under one roof, from corporate structuring to bookkeeping and the accounting to the estate planning. So the left hand and the right hand kind of know what each other are doing.
So when I first learned about the Augusta Rule, I love moments like this. So there was a very famous judge many years ago named Learned Hand who says there are two tax systems, one for the informed and one for the uninformed, and both are legal. And we hear a lot of these stories about how, the rich, do things on taxes to get a break on it. But the Augusta Rule is the perfect example of that, but we can use it. So,
yeah.
It's a bunch of rich golf guys got together and said, I want to be able to go to you're more of a golf person than I am, but I want to go to Augusta for this big golf tournament and I don't want to pay for it. So now I'm going to make a loop, but we can take advantage of that, which I love.
Yeah.
I love that story behind how it was,
Yeah. It started with the good old boys. They've met, they just wanted to be able to write it off. So the IRS said, okay, we'll look at it. And then they ended up putting a cap on it, because if not, there's plenty of businesses out there with the capital. They do it every single day. Yeah. And so just to give everyone an idea, we're talking roughly about a $28,000 deduction that you possibly could implement in your business. And if you haven't filed your taxes for 2024, you could still potentially implement it for last year, depending on how you paid yourself, which we typically will look at with our clients. But more importantly, obviously make sure that's rolled out before the end of the year, because once that clock strikes midnight, for the most part, everyone's hands are tied. And at that point, the IRS is going to get what they're going to get. And I love our country. I absolutely appreciate the opportunity I have as an entrepreneur and a business owner, but I am not going to pay $1 more than I have to. And I tell you that every year we look at it pretty aggressively. I sit down with my head CPA here. He's literally on my calendar every quarter, and we sit at where we're going, projections, estimated payments, so I can start implementing some of these strategies.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring up that story and what this is. That's what a true relationship with an accountant should be. Every quarter you go through your P&Ls, see where things can do better, see where things don't do well, see where you can take advantage of these systems. There are a ton of loopholes in the tax law. Take advantage of them. They're there for your reason. They're there for business. And that's really what a good accountant will do for you, is that consultative role, rather than just, we usually think, oh, they just make sure our books all balance. And, then once a year they do my taxes. Having a really good accounting relationship is much more than that. And they can help with, they can help with stuff like this, like Augusta Rule, or making sure things are up to date. Bookkeepers, same thing. Very first time a bookkeeper ever went through my books, we found out my chart of account was wrong, which is where everything goes. It's like that list of, this is for meals, this is for travel, this is for, that maps to your 1040, or that maps to your taxes. And having that wrong could potentially be leaving money on the table. We found out I was losing thousands of dollars worth in deductions I could have taken because I just had those incorrect. And having a really good bookkeeper helps you to save that money. Very much so worth every penny that we pay them.
I just really feel, obviously if you're just looking for someone to plug in numbers, I tell people save the money, go to H&R Block. But, if you have the right relationship, And I think this is important for people to know as far as our approach, because every business approach is different. But we don't believe in billing by the hour because we want to provide this education. We want to have these types of conversations with our clients. We want to educate them because obviously, let's face it, the better they do, then the more support they're going to need. So we're very hands-on. So whether it's a new business for someone who's kind of scared just starting out, we hold your hand. I want to show everyone this record book here. For those that do have an LLC, or maybe you don't have an LLC, this corporate record book here we put together for our clients. It has all of your corporate seal, has your EIN letter, has everything that you need for your business. So if you don't have one of these, you may want to look at it, because I'm very big on being in compliance. And so these record books help our clients with like the minutes of their first meeting and then their annual meetings that we should be holding. And I know most, I probably have an LLC that I'm probably behind on too. I'm not going to sit here and lie, but, we're responsible to keep track of our financials. We're responsible to make sure that record book is up to date. So just real quick, I want to share my vision with my wife and I, Andrew, when we started 12 years ago, was to be that one-stop shop, to be that place where people could call, whether it was about their corporation or LLC, whether it was tax related, and then the estate planning, because it all ties together. Obviously, we need to make sure we're structured properly, maximize our bottom line, right, through that tax and planning and proper accounting. And then when that day comes, where's it all going to go? And it's so important that goes into your family estate or trust, and ultimately avoid that probate process. And so, I have a lot of stories about that as well. There's some pretty interesting, scenarios out there when people don't have trust. But sorry, I got a little off track there. I'll let you get back on whatever you'd like to ask. Sorry, Andrew.
No, you're fine, man. No, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that you guys do that I really love is you're not, you do all the stuff we don't want to worry about. Like, I don't want to worry about like what state I'm going to incorporate in. I hate bookkeeping. I don't think there's much more that I dislike more than bookkeeping, because it's not my thing. As entrepreneurs, as visionaries, that's not what we do. It's not what we're good at. Leave us in our zones. And I think a lot of this stuff is incredibly important. Like, people wouldn't know about chart of accounts or Augusta Rule or how to structure a corporation, things like that. It's something we don't think about. It's something a lot of people don't know. Keeping corporate records. I mean, I'm a single member LLC. I don't ever think about having meetings because it's just me. And if I'm going to go talking to myself, I think I have some deeper issues, but in a meeting. But for me, I don't think about that. That's not cool. It's not sexy. It's not fun.
And one thing too, like in our books, and you can Google it, you can waive the annual meeting. So there's a waiver of the notice of the annual meeting. So there's different things you can do, but if we've taken the time to incorporate and spent the money, I don't want it to be considered or treated as an alter ego. And so, every year as a commercial registered agent, which we're also a registered agent. So for those of you watching that have your LLC, you may be your own registered agent, which means your address is on public record. I usually don't recommend that. So whether it's us or another big firm, you guys know the names, they're online. They can provide that service, but you should, when you form your LLC, you should always avoid putting your information on public record. So let's go back to that real quick as far as Wyoming. Wyoming, when they've formed the company, they only put the organizer on public record. So my company will go down as the organizer of that LLC. So your name is actually not on public record anywhere. So you have privacy with this entity as well. And so for those of you that are looking for privacy, maybe doing private lending, a lot of you are probably in that space. We have found 99 times out of 100, we will just set up the Wyoming LLC for them and just keep it headquartered there, keep it private, and then they'll do their investments through it there.
Awesome. Well, Brent, one of the questions I like to ask people, and because a lot of times we're starting companies for our legacies, and that's really what we're doing. What do you want to be known for in the next 5-10 years? Like, what is your ultimate that you want people to remember you for?
Well, first and foremost, as a good father. I have four boys, and I've coached my kids and for 12, 14 years while owning my business. So first and foremost, raised the way I was, want to be known as a good family man, good husband, a good person. Just someone that was always there for their clients. I want to be known for a visionary, I guess, for businesses, to be able to help them just get to that next level and be the reason that they were able to have the financial freedom that a lot of us experience once we do the grind. I have a sign on my wall, Andrew, that says 97% who quit are employed by the 3% that never give up. And I want to be known for that, on my side with my company, but with those efforts and the attention and all the time we spend with our clients, that 5 to 10 years be known for making a difference in their business.
Awesome.
I generally mean that.
Awesome, man. And I know you do. I know you well enough to know you do. Absolutely, man. Well, Brent, thank you so much for being on the show today and spreading this wisdom. It's one of those things, we don't like to think about this. We don't like to, we would rather that corporate structure and accounting and all of that not exist. However, when used as a tool and understanding and having somebody on our team who does know it really helps us and can be incredibly beneficial. So thank you so much for being on today, spreading some wisdom, helping a lot of companies save money and not having to pay too much to their unintentional business partner, Uncle Sam.
You're welcome. and then, Andrew, what I wanted to say is, maybe in a month or so, we could get back on and we could talk a little bit more about the trust. I'd like to educate your audience on the asset protection trust, and then just the importance of the revocable living trust. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you don't have to be a business owner. You don't have to be in a club to have a revocable living trust. Even at my age, I had mine before I owned my building, before I owned my home, because this is what I do for a living. So I wanted to practice what I preached. But, for those of you out there that have a personal residence, that have bank accounts, I've seen some pretty gnarly scenarios with probate, and it get pretty expensive. Obviously, we don't have time today, but I would love to be able to educate your audience on that next. And if they have any questions about that, they can certainly call. By the way, our main number here, which I would like for if people would like to just call the main line, it's 702-623-2500. Again, 702-623-2500. I was going to give my direct line, but I want to make sure every call is answered. So I have a couple assistants. So every call would be answered and either transferred or put on my schedule. So I just wanted to put that out there. And for all of your audience, I do have one of my founders and partners that will deal with, my close groups, and I consider you a close friend, a good group. But I will personally try to do all the consultations that come, from your audience. So if they call that number, Jocelyn or Taylor will get them on the calendar, and then I'll do anywhere from 30 to 45-minute consultation, no strings attached, just conversation. And if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit.
Sure. And we'll have those in the show notes as well, so you can learn how to reach out to Brent and get in contact with them. And yet, trusts, I didn't want to get too far into trusts. We will do another one because that is a whole nother world that is really fascinating, that it can also help a lot, especially when it comes to probate. I've been through that process of probate. You don't want to do it. It's not fun. So we'll have you on in a little bit. We'll show you everything you wanted to know about probate and trusts and how they work and all kinds of things.
I've talked to so many people just the last 2 days, and I've done so many living trusts the last couple of days. I just felt like there's probably some people out there that have been thinking about it, and they don't know where to turn, or they're just putting it off for whatever reason. And I just take every opportunity I can, because I've been doing this 20 years and I've seen some pretty devastating things. I see women going through probate waiting for $400,000 because their husbands died. And I see $11 million estates be transferred over like they're handing a piece of paper to someone. So, I felt compelled to just touch on that. So if anyone has questions about that, even though we didn't focus on it, I'm more than happy to answer anything there. But I just wanted to put that out there, Andrew. I'm happy to educate your audience and give you another half hour. Okay.
That'd be awesome, man. We'll definitely do it here in the near future.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you so
Brent.
much.
Yep.
You have a great day.
Thank you, too.
Everyone, have a great day. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Hustle and Grind podcast, where we unpack what it really takes to build something that matters. If today's conversation hit home, do me a favor. Share it with someone who's in the trenches too. And if you're building your own brand, platform, or message and want help turning that story into serious authority, head over to theauthorityforge.com to see how we can help. Until next time, keep showing up, keep shipping, and keep chasing the work that sets you on fire. I'm Andrew, and this was the Hustle and Grind podcast.